They cheer for winners, but only after the win. Your goal is clear: to make a real comeback. Not noise, not motivation quotes. An actual rise from failure, loss, or being counted out. But when you fall, belief disappears. People stop calling. Support fades. Some quietly enjoy being right about you. And that's the most dangerous moment. Because now you're fighting two enemies at once. The world's doubt and your own. That gap between who you were and who you are now feels brutal, lonely, heavy. Most people never cross it. Not because they're weak, but because they don't understand what this phase is doing to their mind. And that's where they lose. This video breaks down the psychology of a comeback no one believes in. Why being doubted changes how your brain works, why it hurts so much, and how this exact condition can be turned into your greatest advantage. If you're trying to rise while no one is clapping yet, this is the part they never tell you. There's something strange about comebacks that happen in silence. Something the world doesn't see until it's already happened. And the question we need to answer is this: what happens in the human mind when you're fighting your way back and the only voice cheering is your own? You're standing at the bottom, looking up, and every person who knew you at your peak is now looking at you with that particular kind of pity mixed with discomfort. You know that look. It's the one that says, "I hope you make it, but I don't actually think you will." Here's the thing. When you're attempting a comeback, you're not just fighting the practical obstacles in your path. You're fighting something far more insidious. The collective disbelief of everyone who once knew your success. The psychology behind this runs deeper than simple skepticism. There's a concept in social psychology called the pratfall effect, but it works in reverse when the fall is too dramatic. Research shows that people become more likable when they make small mistakes. It humanizes them. But when someone falls from grace entirely, when a failure is catastrophic, the same mechanism that created warmth now creates distance. People protect themselves from your failure. They withdraw their belief because, unconsciously, they're afraid that belief itself might be contagious. That supporting someone who's failing might somehow mark them as failures too. And you feel this. Every canceled lunch, every unreturned call, every conversation that suddenly has an expiration date stamped on it. You're not imagining it. The social scientist Jennifer Crocker found that our sense of self-worth is deeply entangled with how others see us. And when that reflection changes, it creates what she calls contingent self-worth, where your value feels dependent on external validation. But here's what's really happening in those early days of your comeback. You're being sorted. Life is separating the people who loved your success from the people who love you. And that separation? It's excruciating, because you can't tell the difference yet. Every person who steps back feels like a betrayal. Every doubt feels like proof that maybe everyone's right. Maybe this comeback is impossible. Let me tell you what's happening inside your brain during a comeback. When you're at your peak, your brain is flooded with dopamine and reinforced by constant positive feedback loops. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered that our dopamine neurons fire not just when we receive a reward, but in anticipation of it. Success breeds expectation of more success. Your brain learns to expect the applause. And this is where it gets complex. When you fall, those dopamine pathways don't just stop. They go into what neuroscientists call prediction error. Your brain expected the reward, the recognition, the success. When it doesn't come, it creates a painful dissonance. It's not just disappointment. It's your neural pathways screaming that something is wrong. Now you're trying to make a comeback in this state. You're trying to rebuild while your own brain is fighting against the absence of what it once had. But here's what's fascinating. This is where the most profound transformation becomes possible. Carol Dweck's research on mindset shows us something crucial. People with a fixed mindset believe their abilities are static. They're what they are. When these people fail, they see it as evidence of their fundamental inadequacy. But people with a growth mindset see failure as information, as a gap between their current skills and their goals. A comeback that no one believes in forces you to develop a growth mindset or perish. Because here's the truth. When external validation disappears, you're left with a choice. You can internalize everyone's doubt and let it confirm your own fears. Or you can develop what psychologists call intrinsic motivation, the ability to generate your own sense of purpose and progress independent of outside approval. There's a phase in every real comeback that no one talks about. The phase where you're working in complete obscurity, where progress is invisible. Where every day feels like pushing a boulder up a mountain and no one's watching and no one cares and you're starting to wonder if you care anymore. The mystics called this the dark night of the soul. Psychologists call it the extinction burst, that moment right before a breakthrough when everything feels hardest. You're in the gym at dawn, and you're the only one there. You're relearning skills you once did effortlessly. You're sending emails that go unanswered. You're showing up to opportunities that feel beneath where you once were. And the silence is deafening. But silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. Here's what's really happening. You're building something that can't be shaken. Psychologist Angela Duckworth's research on grit shows that perseverance in the face of obstacles is a better predictor of success than talent. But more than that, grit developed in isolation, grit forged without the fuel of external encouragement, becomes something else entirely. It becomes unshakable self-efficacy. Albert Bandura defined self-efficacy as your belief in your ability to succeed in specific situations. But most people build self-efficacy through vicarious experiences, watching others succeed and believing they can too, or through social persuasion, having others tell them they can do it. You don't have that luxury anymore. The people who could have been your mirrors are gone. So you're forced to build self-efficacy through the only remaining path: mastery experiences, small wins that no one sees, progress that no one celebrates, proof that accumulates in secret. And this is where it gets interesting, because while everyone is doubting you, while they're watching to see if you'll fail again, something is happening beneath the surface that they can't see. You're rebuilding your identity from the foundation up. Psychologist Dan McAdams argues that our identities are narratives, stories we tell ourselves about who we are. When you were successful before, your narrative was probably something like, I'm the person who achieved X. I'm the person people respect for Y. But that narrative shattered. And now you're writing a completely different story. The protagonist isn't the person who is always successful. The protagonist is the person who fell and refused to stay down. The person who heard impossible and treated it as a dare. The person who learned that belief, real belief, doesn't come from applause. It comes from showing up when no one's clapping. But the truth is, this new narrative is more powerful than your old one ever was. Because the person who's never failed doesn't know what they're made of. They don't know if their success came from their effort or their circumstances. They don't know if they're strong or just lucky. But you're learning exactly what you're capable of. Every day you show up in the silence. You're proving something to yourself. Not to them, to yourself. And maybe that's the real gift of a comeback no one believes in. It teaches you that the only belief that ever mattered was your own. Here's what no one tells you about comebacks. Progress doesn't look like progress when you're in the middle of it. You're working twice as hard to get half as far. You're celebrating wins that would have felt like footnotes in your old life. You ran 5 miles. Amazing. You wrote for an hour. Incredible. You got one client, victory. And there's this voice in your head, isn't there? The one that sounds suspiciously like all the doubters outside your head. The one that says, this is pathetic. Look how far you've fallen. This used to be easy for you. The psychology behind this is what's called the arrival fallacy. The belief that reaching a goal will create lasting happiness. You reach the summit once, and you remember how that felt. Now you're back at base camp, and the mountain looks impossible. But here's what's fascinating about the human brain. It's terrible at recognizing incremental change. There's a concept in behavioral psychology called creeping normality or landscape amnesia. The way gradual changes become invisible because we adapt to each small shift. It's why you don't notice yourself aging in the mirror until you see a photo from 10 years ago. When you're making a comeback, every day feels almost identical to the day before. The progress is so incremental that it seems like you're standing still. But you're not. You're moving. Every single day In 6 months, you won't recognize the person you are today. But today, you can't see tomorrow's version of yourself. So you have to trust in the mathematics of small actions compounded over time. The writer James Clear talks about the plateau of latent potential, that long valley where you're working and seeing no visible results. And then suddenly, seemingly overnight, breakthrough. But it wasn't overnight. It was all those invisible days accumulating into something undeniable. Here's something that makes a lonely comeback even harder: mirror neurons. You know what mirror neurons are? They're specialized cells in your brain that fire both when you perform an action and when you observe someone else performing that action. They're why yawns are contagious. Why watching someone in pain makes you wince. Why emotions spread through crowds like wildfire. Mirror neurons are the biological basis of empathy, but they're also the biological basis of doubt transmission. When everyone around you doubts your comeback, Your mirror neurons are firing constantly, simulating their skepticism in your own mind. You're literally feeling their disbelief as if it were your own. Neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti, who discovered mirror neurons, showed that we don't just observe others' emotions, we embody them. So when your old colleagues look at you with pity, your brain is experiencing that pity internally. When your family members express concern, your neurons are firing with their concern. When strangers hear your story and subtly shake their heads, your brain is processing that gesture as your own doubt. This is why isolation during a comeback can feel so suffocating. You're not just fighting your own doubts. You're fighting the reflected doubts of everyone around you. But here's where it gets really interesting. This is also why removing yourself from negative environments is so crucial. Not because you're running away, but because you're giving your mirror neurons something different to reflect. Find one person who believes. Find one story of someone who made it back. Find one day where you prove something to yourself. And let your mirror neurons fire with that instead. In Joseph Campbell's hero's journey, there's a figure called the threshold guardian, a force that stands between the hero and their transformation. The guardian's job isn't to stop the hero, but to test their commitment, to make sure they're worthy of what comes next. A comeback that no one believes in, that's your threshold guardian. Every doubter is testing whether you really want this or if you just want the idea of this. Every setback is asking if you're committed to the process or just attached to the outcome. Every silent day is checking whether you need the world's permission to become who you're meant to be. And this is where it gets profound. Because what you're discovering in this comeback isn't just that you can rebuild your career, your body, your life. What you're discovering is that your worth was never contingent on your success in the first place. Psychotherapist Carl Rogers talked about unconditional positive regard, the idea that humans thrive when they're valued for their inherent worth, not their achievements. But most of us never received that. We received love tied to performance, pride tied to grades, respect tied to titles. So we grew up believing that we were only valuable when we were winning, and then we lost, and the love seemed to disappear. The pride evaporated, the respect vanished. But the truth is, and here's what's really happening in your comeback, you're finally learning to separate your inherent worth from your temporary circumstances. You're learning that you are not your achievements. You are not your failures. You are the consciousness experiencing both, and that consciousness has value regardless of external conditions. This is the invisible gift of your lonely comeback. You're becoming unconditionally human. Here's what happens next, and it's so predictable, it's almost funny. You keep working in silence. You keep showing up when no one's watching. You keep choosing yourself when the world has looked away. And slowly, imperceptibly, things begin to shift. You land a small win, then another, then something bigger. The progress compounds. The mathematics start to become visible. And suddenly, all those people who doubted you are back. I always believed in you, they say. I knew you could do it, they claim. I'm so proud of you, they announce. And you have to decide how you feel about that. Research on Fairweather Friends shows that humans are remarkably opportunistic in their associations. We're drawn to success and repelled by failure on an almost biological level. It's not malice. It's not even conscious. It's just how we're wired to navigate social hierarchies and protect our own status. But knowing that doesn't make it hurt less when they come back, does it? Here's what I want you to understand. Their return doesn't invalidate your lonely journey. Their absence taught you who you are. Their return teaches you forgiveness. Because the truth is, you weren't just making a comeback in your career or your life. You were making a comeback in your capacity to be fully human, to fail, to be rejected, to be alone, and to choose yourself anyway. And that's something that can never be taken from you again. The scar that became strength. There's a Japanese art form called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold, making the cracks part of the beauty rather than something to hide. Your comeback is kintsugi. You're not returning to who you were. You're becoming someone better, someone who knows what the bottom feels like and climbed out anyway. Someone who heard impossible and proved it wrong. Someone who learned that the only approval you ever needed was your own. The psychologist Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote that humans can endure almost anyhow if they have a strong enough why. But he also discovered something else. Suffering that has meaning transforms us. Suffering without meaning destroys us. Your lonely comeback gave your suffering meaning. Every day you showed up, you were writing a story of resilience. Every time you chose to believe in yourself when no one else did, you were creating meaning from adversity. And the person who emerges from that crucible, They're not fragile anymore. They're not dependent on the crowd's applause. They're not shaken by others' doubts. Because they've already walked through the fire alone. And they know in their bones that they can do hard things. That they can stand when everyone expects them to fall. That they can become who they're meant to be regardless of who's watching. So let me tell you the final truth about comebacks that no one believes in. They're not about proving the doubters wrong. That's what you think it's about when you start. But it's not. They're about discovering that you were never broken in the first place. You were just becoming. Every person who doubted you was giving you a gift, even though it didn't feel like it. They were forcing you to find your own belief, to generate your own fire, to learn that external validation is beautiful but not necessary. Because here's what's fascinating. The comebacks that everyone believes in, they're easier. They're supported. They're carried by collective encouragement and social proof. But they don't transform you the same way. The lonely comeback. The one where you're the only believer, where you're working in obscurity, where progress is invisible. That one rewrites your entire understanding of who you are and what you're capable of. That one teaches you that you are enough. That you always were. That your worth was never up for debate. And maybe that's the real comeback. Not the external achievements that the world will eventually see and celebrate, but the internal revolution where you stop needing their celebration to know your own value. So if you're in the middle of your comeback right now, if you're working in silence while everyone doubts, if you're wondering if anyone will ever believe in you again, let me tell you something. They will. Eventually, they will. But more importantly, you already do. And you're learning day by day that your belief is the only one that was ever required. Keep going. Not because they're watching, but because you are. The person you're becoming, the one forged in silence, built in doubt, strengthened in isolation. That person is going to be remarkable. Not because they achieved something great, but because they learned to believe in themselves when no one else would. And that belief, that's the real comeback. That's the one no one can take away. That's your story. Own it. Live it. And one day, when someone else is attempting their own lonely comeback, be the person who believes in them. Because you'll remember what that silence felt like. And you'll know what a single voice of belief can mean.